Good evening, friends. We are happy to have amongst us Mr. Sukumar, an engineering graduate from BITS Pilani with over 3 decades of experience in the corporate sector as well as in startup business. An alumni from Wharton School of Business, he has been nominated as CIO 100 of India for 3 years consecutively by CIO magazine when he was in Cognizant. And he has also been nominated twice by the top 100 social CIO by Huffington Post. Mr. Sukumar has also been awarded lifetime recognition for his work in IT through the Computer World Premier 100 Top IT Leaders Program, apart from several other recognitions from various institutions for his prowess as a CIO. He considers himself fortunate to have led the $2 billion transformation programs in parallel using frugal methods when he served as a global chief information officer and global head of innovation at Cognizant, a Fortune 200 firm. Thereon, he left to start his own startup called Tiny Magiq in 2015. It's a disruptive innovation accelerator startup, which he co-founded with 3 others. He's a fitness enthusiast, and he set a fitness record recently, a full virtual walk around the equator, covering a distance of 40,075 kilometers as of 31st December 22. Amazing. And he did conduct a virtual conference over 20 plus expert speakers with a nano presentation style of sharing insights. That is a 3 minutes presentation. I would say it is the world's first nano presentation conference. Over to you. Today he's going to talk on the topic of $1 billion plus digital business impact with zero new budget dollars. Yes, that's right. Zero new budget dollars. Over to you, Mr. Sukumar.
Thank you, Arun, for the kind words. Thank you all. Debashish Rana happens to be my classmate from BITS Pilani. Great to see you here, Debashish.
Likewise.
Yeah. So I have never spoken to finance executives like you all. So I'm going to try to share what I can from the world of finance to the extent that I know. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you to the FENG group for this opportunity. I want to start my presentation with what is the biggest secret of the digital disruptors, and then I will explain what happened in the Cognizant IT department. You will all agree that these are disruptors of our time. We studied over 1,000 disruptors and we came with some very surprising findings. My own journey started with, why didn't I come up with Uber? Arun sir read out my intro, which says that I was the global CIO and head of innovation at Cognizant. We used to transport 25,000 people every day to their desks for SLA-driven jobs where they had to be at their desk at a particular time. Had I come up with the idea, I could have implemented it. Now, why am I so confident that I could have done it? I had a few thousand people in the IT department. And what did Uber introduce as new technology? Actually, nothing, right? Google Maps, GPS-based navigation, payment gateways, app stores, social media, all of it was already there. So had I come up with it, I could have implemented it and create business impact. So I had the means, the opportunity, the resources, the budget, everything, but I still didn't come up with it. So that led me to the actual origin story of Kalanick and Camp, which some of you may have heard of. Kalanick and Camp were in pouring rain one day in Paris, France. They were trying to hail a cab. They got frustrated and they famously came up with the idea of Uber. Now, I am thinking, wait a minute. I have been in Paris, in France, in pouring rain, but I didn't come up with the idea. In fact, I didn't even see the problem. And I'm guessing you didn't either. So that led me to investigate the word problem itself. What is this word problem? It is the most important word in English, in business. I'm sure you will all agree. We use it a zillion times daily. Billions of web pages reference it. But to my surprise, I found there is no pithy definition for it, which is the first thing we are going to do together as a group. Can few of you post on the chat box, what do you think is the definition of the word problem? And this is my way of introducing interactivity into the thing so that I don't make the long presentation and ask you, are there any questions?
Please use the chat box and do not unmute.
Please post on the chat box. It will be helpful to have at least 1 or 2 responses.
Yeah.
Issue that needs to be resolved. Thank you, Leo. Karthik, lack of capability. Challenge that needs attention. Something that impedes progress. Debashish. Mike, pain point. Yeah, very good. This is excellent. Thank you. Problem for which there isn't an answer yet. So after a lot of discussing with people and researching, the painful workflow, we came up with this definition that a problem is an unmet expectation. Or rather, wherever there are unmet expectations, there are problems. Now, I haven't yet found an exception to this rule. Now, let's go back to Uber. I am in Paris, France, in pouring rain with my friends or family or colleagues. What did I do? I danced in the middle of the street or called the phone number of the cab company. Now, that's how the taxi cab industry operates, and that's what I did. Since there is no unmet expectation, there is no problem either. Since there is no problem, there is no idea. So what did Kalanick and Camp do? They came up with what we decided to call a performance undersupply. This is a new pattern that we have observed in several disruptors. That new unimagined expectation was, I want the car right here, right now, where I am standing, when I am standing. The moment they set up that expectation, in fact, we have done this exercise with non-tech executives also, that it is not that hard to come up with the GPS-based triangulation idea and spot the problem in the ride hailing. So it is not it was there right in front of us, but it is not a problem because of this unmet expectation situation. So this is the performance undersupply, and we call this, we studied 1,000+ disruptors and none of them solve problem. They find and solve performance undersupply. We call this Lego block of skills. We call it a micro skill. It's a performance undersupply X-ray, the X-ray vision that allows us to see at the bottom of the iceberg. Now, it turns out that these two are two different mindsets, right? Problem is a mindset. We tend to think in terms of problems, and I'm going to tell you the mistakes that I have made in my career of getting stuck in the left-hand side. And being in the IT services industry, I've heard so many times from my clients, hey, your people are good, but they are order takers. You think inside the box. Whereas on the right-hand side, when you're thinking unimagined expectations, performance undersupply is a mindset. This is where disruptive innovation, as described by Clayton Christensen in his famous book, Innovator's Dilemma. You want to be a trusted advisor, partner, out-of-the-box thinker, proactive, entrepreneurial, all of it comes from this thing. Now, interestingly enough, no matter how well you do your job on the left-hand side, at best, you are going to get excellent or good job from your clients. Can anybody say why? Why do we never get delight on this side? At best, we can get excellent. Can anybody answer why that is so? On the chat box, please. Yeah, Karthik. Because of the word expectation, right? There is an expectation. So at best, you can maybe beat it a little bit, right? You can't blow away the expectation. Whereas when you do unexpected is when delight occurs. And you will notice this once you keep this in the back of your mind, you will start to see, yeah, expectation was low, or whatever the expectation was, you met it. You must have read the Blue Ocean Strategy, the Loon Shots, all of this, right? Can anybody say what is this device? I speak to a lot of young people and they have not even heard of what this device is. You all look very young. So tell me what this device is.
Sorry, not able to see the picture properly.
Yeah, it is kind of small. Yeah, Polaroid camera. I am correct.
Okay.
It's a Polaroid camera. Many people, young people have not even heard of this. So instant photo camera, yeah. So what happened was, it was invented by a person by name Edwin Land, famous inventor. One day he was on the beach with his daughter, who he says was 4 to 5 years old at that point. So he takes a picture. She says, Papa, why can't I see the picture? Immediately. Now, Edwin Land was not a lay person. He was already working with photography, chemicals, and so on. So he comes up with the Polaroid camera, and the rest is history. So the new unimagined expectation was submitted by a child. So you will see this pattern of a new unimagined expectation repeatedly. Now, if you look at this concept of a performance under supply, it can start from the lowest level as a citizen disruptor or a global disruptor like Uber. All of them follow this pattern of a performance under supply, and I think we can all start here very easily in our job, in our functions, if we set our mind to it. So this word disruptive innovation, right, has taken the fancy of everybody. So we decided to create a definition of it so that we are all on the same page as to what this is. Can anybody say what is the one word that is not intuitively obvious in this definition? Which word is out of place here? You wouldn't have expected this word. Again on the chat box, please. Innovation, novel, noteworthy, capability, unexpected. No, unexpected and novel is why it is disruptive, isn't it? Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to tell you relative to that context. So Uber disrupted the taxi cab industry without having to come up with anything new, technically speaking. So when we think of disruptive, we tend to think of disruptive in the absolute sense. Having studied 1,000+ disruptors, I could tell you that no one has come up with anything that is universally disruptive. So it is relative to that context that something is disruptive. So let's now go into the IT department, right? I become the new CIO, and I used to fill this timesheet myself as well. Look at the 6-step process. You have to go to a particular URL, choose the timesheet option from the hundreds of functions. This was in an ERP system. And you will go screen by screen, and this whole 6-step process could take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're new to the company, it might take even longer. Quite boring and frustrating. Now we fixed this, and this alone saved us $25 million just to get your curiosity piqued. So this is where the state of the IT was when I started. Everything was too slow. In fact, we had a 400-page slide deck to consult before we could execute some of the key transactions on the system. Approvals were painful for the management staff because a travel approval will come to your email. You have to log into the travel system, go to that particular approval page and approve. And you could be traveling. BlackBerry and iPhone and all that were not massively distributed at this point. So you had to boot up your laptop, look for an internet connection. All of that you had to do, and it would take too long for IT to develop anything. This was the state. To make matters worse, the attrition in the IT department was quite bad. Many of you that work with or familiar with the internal IT would know that in a consulting firm, almost nobody wants to work for internal IT. Everyone wants to work on the client engagement. So that also contributed to this poor happiness of the IT department. So now I went to my CFO, and CFO Gordon Coburn, one of the most prodigious people I've ever worked for, absolutely brilliant. So he and the other executives came back to me and said, we have to pursue associate delight. I said, okay. And my first proposal was, sir, if you give me 2 years and $25 million, I will fix the problem. What do you think happened? Did I get the $25 million?
No, he laughed at you.
Yeah, he sat me down and explained to me how that we had already spent several $100 million. I was the 4th or the 5th CIO, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, $25 million is not going to fix it. He said, I'm going to give you a challenge. He said, no new budget dollars, whatever is there in your budget, you will do transformation within that. And luckily for me, he chose transformation because associate delight, I believe that could be only produced through transformation. And you can see this thing here, the pucks coming up. This is a new unimagined expectation. I'm sure you will all agree. IT department wanting transformation, but no budget. And then I went back to Gordon and said, not to challenge him, but I told him, sir, in that case, please don't ask me any questions about efficiency for the next 3 years. Now, the reason I said this is important because at that time I was thinking transformation and efficiency were mutually exclusive. I'll tell you later what happened to this efficiency thing towards the end of this presentation. So now I got my marching orders. What do I do? So the first thing we decided to look was, why was the corporate software so hard to use? By some good luck, exactly during that time, our chief strategy officer, Malcolm Frank, and Jeffrey Moore, well-known innovation expert, they started talking about this, what they called as the Monday morning versus the Sunday night experience. Sunday night, you're having your iPhone, you're dealing with this school software, you come to the office and you see the green screen and this phone on your legacy landline phone on your desktop. So they came up with the hypothesis that that's because these are all systems of record, and what we are dealing with Sunday night are systems of engagement. Now you can see systems of engagement is a new unimagined expectation. Now, how do we do this frugally, right? So we are going to talk about that. So we set some extreme objectives, and you can say these are unimagined expectations to find the performance under supply. We said that we will need 500% productivity gain from our applications. There should be no training because we asked the question, you don't go through training to use Facebook, Google, Twitter, any of the consumer applications, but then you need a 4-hour training course to use the corporate software. And we wanted only one URL because every little thing in Cognizant at that time had a separate URL. We counted something like a few thousand URLs. Every application had its own URL and you had to know that, and bookmarking couldn't keep up with that. And we wanted, because systems were slow, we laid down the guideline that it should have at least 500 milliseconds of response time. The average corporate type response time at that time was 8 to 10 seconds or more. Now, how do we do this frugally, right? This came again at the right time. This was before the book Lean Startup. The Lean Startup was about to be published. We contacted Eric Ries, and he was kind enough to come to Cognizant and do a 3-hour workshop on how to think lean and how to come up with the minimum viable product approach, which is what we adopted. That was the key answer to do all of this frugally, one of the key answers. So we designed our MVP, right? We said the system of engagement will be a separate layer, right? To bring Malcolm Frank's and Moore's concept. Because we cannot touch the existing system of record, it will be too expensive. So we created this thing. And to protect our investments in the existing legacy infrastructure, we created what are called as these connector apps. And one of the key ones was this one-click timesheet that will improve the timesheet experience by 500%. And we created only one app because this is an MVP, one native app, which we called which was used for onboarding new employees. And for approvals, we came up with this approvals by email. We chose 9 important transactions, travel being one of them. And the way it would work was the travel approval. Travel approvals were piling up, and because the approval came late, the booking of the tickets would happen later and the prices would have gone up. So it had huge implications to do this on time. So all the travel system will do is it will send you a link. You just have to reply approved. And it will take that, parse that thing and post it into the backend. So people could do this right from their Blackberries, which was what was popular at the time. iPhone hadn't yet taken over the world. So now I'm going to talk through some of the hurdles that we went through, because by no means was this easy to do. The first hurdle we had was, hey, how do we produce this 500 millisecond response time, right? We are talking about 8, 10, 12 seconds like that. Now, Kumaran Anandan, who was a consultant from Microsoft at that time, he is one of my key co-founders in Tiny Magic today. Jayashree also is in Tiny Magic. She was the leader of the One Cognizant platform then. So they looked at the architecture that we were starting to use, and they proved that that existing architecture could never do 500 millisecond even if we wanted to. So we had to scrap and redo the architecture. But we were able to produce a 500 millisecond response time on the server side. Now this proved to me, amongst the extreme objectives, we said this proved to be the hardest, because by the time I left, we had only reached 2 seconds for the round trip. We hadn't yet reached 500 milliseconds for the round trip. I'm told that few years after that, they did reach this 500 milliseconds, because it was quite an engineering challenge. Now, Frank, our CEO then, was kind enough to actually log into the system and test it. And he said, yeah, this is quite fast. Now, imagine the CEO of a company doing this for the IT department. That's the kind of executive support that I had in the company. The next problem was we had designed this as a separate layer, and we didn't have single sign-on at that time. So people are already frustrated with entering their user ID and password every single time. And we introducing a new layer means one more user ID and login. Now you remember that we don't have the money, right? No new dollars in the budget. Now a new single sign-on software would cost us millions of dollars. But again, working for a smart company like Cognizant, our digital security practice came up with a homegrown single sign-on solution. So that solved that problem. So then we rolled it out in stealth mode. We got hold of the IT department's few friends. There were not many. And we gave the One Cognizant software to them to test it. The feedback was somewhat positive, but something was amiss, you could tell. But when we investigated, we found that when you click on One Cognizant and go to the connector app or any other app, it would take 10 to 15 seconds to transfer control to the backend system. This is obviously ridiculous when we are talking about a 500 millisecond response time. We were thinking of putting a waiting, use that time to put ads and things like that. But finally, this was ridiculous, right? It was failing the promise that we set out to solve. Like I said, Cognizant being a smart company with a lot of smart people, we got the technical experts from our chief technology officer's office. Finally, we solved this problem. Within milliseconds, it will transfer control to the backend. Now, finally, we had built this one-click timesheet. Everything was good, but the adoption was not there at all. We were thinking, does this matter? 500% maybe is not important to people. This is the point at which anyone would be disillusioned. You think you've built this great product, but nobody wants to use it. So we started investigating. And it turns out that a vast majority of the associates would wait for the CFO's reminder, CFO being my boss. The office of the CFO would send right around the timesheet deadline, hey, unless you fill this timesheet, it will threaten you basically with all kinds of consequences, including dinging your salary and so on. It was perplexing to know that people were waiting for that reminder. And when we dug deeper into that, we learned that it's because there was a link in that email that will directly take you to the third step of the timesheet screen. So they could skip the first 2 steps, but the next few steps were still there. Can anybody guess what we did at this point? Obviously, we fixed it. I'm just trying to introduce some interactivity. Please tell me what you would have done. Now that you know this, they're waiting for this email. Yeah, I could have convinced my boss about that. No, we did something simple. We replaced the link in that email with a one cognizant, one click timesheet link. Yeah, exactly, Geeta. That's what we did. So that spread it virally. 100,000 people in 100 days, no training. Remember, no communication was ever issued from my office saying one cognizant has been launched or anything, because we decided not to do any of that marketing. You either use it or you lose it. Over a period of time, we had a hockey stick adoption. We built 700 apps, 98% associate reach. Hundreds of millions of times the apps have been launched. And the top 25 apps alone have produced a $1.1 billion business impact. And that's just a very conservative, just based on the number of hours saved, right? In terms of productivity, feeling better about the apps and all that, there's more impact. Now, why was the IT department taking so much time? For every app that we built, we had to do a capacity planning, do a capital appropriation request, which, as you all know, in finance is a separate process. And it will go through your car request, depending on the amount you're asking for, would go through several layers of committee in the company, ultimately even reaching my boss, the CFO, because for big ticket items. So it will wind through all of that, and then the infra is procured, commission, DR, setup, all of this was happening for every app. So it would take 8 to 16 weeks per app just to do this, assuming your car was approved quickly. So in one cognizant, what we did, it's a private cloud, we had DevOps. This was DevOps in 2010 when the word DevOps hadn't yet reached mainstream. So we removed all of this process. All you had to do was, because you're building small apps, the car request would be very small within the threshold of departmental leaders that they could approve it themselves without having to take it through the several layers of committee. In fact, we have had cases where apps were in production in just 48 hours. A typical IT department might have rolled out maybe 15, 20 apps in this 3-year period. We did 700. This is how the massive impact was created. The infrastructure savings alone would run into several $1 million, because this car would take anywhere from 20 to 50K per app, depending on how big a server. And we were already around 200,000 employees or so. We had to commission, capacity plan for the peak user load. So every application was doing that. So finally, right, the employee satisfaction, we improved. Customer satisfaction, we got the best, and best of all, attrition went below 5%. This is unheard of for any IT department. Now, what happened on the associate delight, right? The CFO choice was transformation, but actually the efficiency of the team had improved by 500% also. In fact, this was completely unexpected for me, because I used to think transformation and efficiency are mutually exclusive. It turns out that if you pursue efficiency, you can't get transformation. Can anybody guess why you don't get transformation if you pursue efficiency? But if you pursue transformation, you get efficiency also. Can anybody guess why efficiency does not lead to transformation? You're all finance people, right? So tell me. Exactly. Efficiency is incremental, because at best you will set efficiency improvement target of what, 15-20%. Yeah, transformation is metamorphosis. So we set the target for efficiency at a 15-20% level. If you are very ambitious, maybe you will set 30%, 40%. You are never going to set a 500% improvement efficiency target. So I think that is one of the reasons, and why I say this. This is very important, because I was addressing a group of executives in Chennai a few months ago. And they were asked, what is the number one priority for this year? Efficiency came on top and transformation was like number 4. So clearly the misconception that I had, that is transformation and efficiency are mutually exclusive. I think many people have that. So if you want to have the cake and eat it too, you will pursue transformation. So we got a lot of awards that we couldn't keep track of at all. In fact, Jeffrey Moore himself had good things to say about what we had done. And none of this is possible without my team. These are my direct reports in the infra team and apps team, and there are several thousand people in the IT department, our internal partner departments, and our internal customer departments. All of us have to work together to make this happen. And we had partners like Microsoft, IBM, Oracle, who all have key roles to play in this initiative. So now I'm going to end this particular speech with a small video. And there will be an answer, there will be a question that you have to answer. Based on what you have heard so far, see if you can connect the dots. Wait, I have to share the sound, right? Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can put that into the chat box. Okay, sharing the sound. Please tell me if you are able to hear the sound. Yes, no?
No, not yet. Yeah, yes.
Okay, please watch.
Now, here's a challenge. In 1 week's time, you will fill the room that I have given you. The best one wins the kingdom. The queen shall give gold to cover the expenses.
I know what to do to win the kingdom.
And he was proud of himself.
My brother is a fool. There's plenty of room on the top.
He filled the room so well that not even air could pass. And he was happy. The courtiers were concerned.
Sire, the third prince has done nothing so far.
He still has one more day. And on the 7th day,
Sir, I have filled the room.
So it's not easy to answer the question of what mistake the first 2 sons did. It's easy to answer what the third son did correctly. So let's see if we can connect the dots to any part of my speech, especially the earlier part of my presentation. What is the mistake the first 2 sons did? Reactive inside the box. They did not, not thinking outside the box, Debashish, correct. But why? They filled the room literally, yes, correct. But why did they think like that? I think Karthik is almost there. Yeah, Robert, no change in expectations. Very good. Please give a round of applause to Robert. So what happened was, they were in the problem mindset, which is kind of, I think Karthik also got a little bit. I think Robert's answer is the best one. They were not changing their expectations. What did the third son do? A new unimagined expectation. Hey, why can't I not fill the thing with anything? Yeah, Geeta, correct. They did not meet the unsaid expectations. Now, the interesting thing is we all think like I did, right? I need $25 million to fix it. We think that we need a lot of money and resources. Whereas this guy didn't even spend any gold. He took the candle and the matches from the kitchen. Whereas these first two sons spent all the gold that was given to them. So incremental thinking is expensive. Transformative thinking is frugal. Now, if you remember what I said, right? 2 years and $25 million, this is a reactive thinking, problem-focused thinking. And I already told you that I got efficiency too, which was unintended. With that, I have covered actually only one or two secrets. So the unimagined expectation and performance under supply. This is the biggest secret of all. The second is to do a MVP or a lean startup methodology. We have modified that to suit corporates, because at that time we rolled out lean startup. Nobody believed that lean startup was even applicable to large companies. Right? Even small companies were failing to adopt it, but large companies most certainly had a resistance to whether it was even applicable. So those are the two important secrets. There are many more that we have developed, and we have created a methodology out of it for digital disruption that any of you can do it. And why I think this is important is because you can do it relative to your context. And there have been plenty of examples in the world already of this. So I'll stop here and I can take questions, or if there are any comments. That leaves you about 15-20 minutes.
Friends, please use the chat box to ask any question as you feel.
How best?
Yeah, Vineet wants to know how best could we implement this kind of approach in a high growth startup working under strict timeline?
Yeah, great question. Does anybody have an answer to this? Let's see if any of you can answer. Amitabh has a good question. Can anybody answer Vineet's question? You want to try? How will you do something like this in a high growth startup?
Train the manpower to system this kind of thinking.
Yeah, you would definitely train them. The thing that I would say, Vineet, was at that point, I left out parts of the story. My boss got and gave me 6 months.
Okay.
He said, within 6 months, if you don't produce any impact, it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
He said, we are so far behind that all you have is 6 months. So 3 years is the total timeline. But within 3 months, we had the one cognizant MVP in testing with a limited test.
Sure.
So it again, think about the candle and the matches, right? It took all of 3 seconds to do that. Whereas these people had to go out, buy all the stuff, fill the thing. So it is actually more expensive and more time consuming to do routine, incremental type of thinking. Although it doesn't appear that way, I would have seen in my experience over and over that happens. We tend to believe that whatever process and system we are currently following is correct. In fact, one of the things that I wanted to do, saying confessions of an innovator, right? The biggest mistake I used to make was I would come up with ideas concerning everybody else but my job. I would go to customers and say, hey, you can do this better, all that. But it took me a long time to realize, and it was very frustrating, because who wants to listen to ideas from a third party about your job? Nobody wants to listen to that I can tell you. But then when I applied it to my own job, things started changing like anything. So the first port of call for an innovator is to look at your own where you have scope of authority. Okay, my process, how can I bring a disruptive innovation? I would say this should be the starting point of any innovator, and that's not intuitively obvious. Because we tend to think, hey, you, that department, go and fix it. Or this department, go and fix it. But what about our department? Our job, right? That's so transformation can be quick also. It is quick, frugal, and transformative. If it doesn't do that, I don't think it's transformative enough. In my opinion, the $25 million in 2 years is bullshit. Luckily, my boss didn't approve it. What is the big deal in spending $25 million and doing something? That's not creative enough. Luckily, my boss challenged me. So that's a long answer to your question, Vineet.
Thank you.
What would be your suggestion? Is there a particular lean literature? Yeah, I would suggest that you all read the Lean Startup book. It's a required, almost required reading. Okay, thank you, Debashish, for joining and for your kind words. I would read Lean Startup. Innovator's Dilemma, you should read. Because I think that's where, I will tell you one thing that has struck me the hardest, and this kind of gets to the point I was already making. I was in the US, I spent 10 years in the US. I was in the US in the year 2000 when the dot-com meltdown happened. And I was completely flummoxed by it. I'm thinking, wait a minute, these are the most innovative companies and they simply just got obliterated. I couldn't deal with it at all. So I was wondering what happened, and then I picked up this Innovator's Dilemma book. And Professor Christensen wrote this, asking the question, why do great companies fail? This is the research topic that he took that led to the book Innovator's Dilemma. And he makes one statement there, which took me several years to even accept. This is what he said. We are all trained to serve our customers better and better, correct? All the organizations we are in, that's what we are trained to do.
Absolutely.
He said, that is the reason you get disrupted. That is the very reason your company gets disrupted. And I was thinking, wait a minute, I have been in customer service for 35 years. Are you telling me that that's somehow incorrect? And that's what is the key insight in disruption, that we are only in problem-focused thinking. We are solving our customers' problem better and better. There is no performance under supply thinking. We don't have time for it. We are so busy in solving problem and keeping our customers happy that we don't see the performance under supply. A new firm comes in and takes us out. This, I would say, is the central lesson of disruption. If you think performance, problem and performance under supply as two different ways of thinking, when you leave this meeting, you go and look at your calendar. In the last 3 months or last 1 year, how much time did you spend on the right hand side in your job? I would argue it will be very, very small or non-existent.
Absolutely.
So this is the central secret that we can take. And what can CFOs do? I think you are all in the prime position to push your business counterparts to do this. Although having worked very closely with one of the best CFOs that I know, Gordon Coburn, I can see how the thinking comes, but look at the way he was thinking. So he didn't even give me any money, right? Which anyway is the central resourcing constraint. So you can actually still do without. Now, this doesn't mean we didn't get any money at all. After we proved the point, in fact, we bought, later on, we bought quite an expensive single sign-on software from IBM. Because by then the business case was there. And we could roll it out in like short order because it was on the One Cognizant platform, we could quickly integrate it. So over a period of time, we started repurposing our budget to this sort of format. So we just have to think differently about our budget. I hope that answers the CFO question. Thank you, Shivaraj.
In connection to the CFO question, I would like to know, with the digital transformation being an imperative, and it is being partly led by CFOs in several instances, your view on incremental support or incremental expectations of the customer will prove inadequate if you really look at digital transformation holistically. Is that the message you're conveying right now? And
Yeah, that's
so,
a great question.
yeah, if so, then
So let
what,
me ask you all a question. Sorry, Arun, finish your question.
if it is so, then how do we go about it? Do we look at using management principles like the OKRs, which are been time tested and then quite useful for a tool for this kind of large change problem?
Yeah, so let me ask you all a question. Do you think transformation is possible without a disruptive innovation in the mix? It's not.
It's not.
And I didn't realize this. It's like, it seems, so you can't do digital transformation without a disruptive innovation in the mix. Now, let me ask you all a question. Let's say in your company, you moved your software from on-prem to cloud. Is that digital transformation?
No.
It's not. But that's what routinely is being called as digital transformation. So in your move to the cloud, are you bringing some disruptive innovation, disruptive capability to your internal or external customers? If this question is not asked, merely moving from on-prem to cloud will just shift the economics from CapEx to OpEx. And I don't know whether that's, I would call as transformation. In fact, if you don't think this through properly, it might actually set your finances back. So what is digital transformation definition from your point of view? So that's what I'm trying to say. You have, if you're doing digital transformation, there has got to be a disruptive innovation in the mix. For example, in the IT department in Cognizant, transformation happened because there are several disruptive ideas that came. We brought in the small apps, the app store concept. Again, did we invent the app store concept? No, iOS did it. DevOps, it was just starting, right? Design thinking. So I sent one of my team members to Stanford. We brought design thinking into the company. Lean startup. It is novel and unexpected. This is the only condition. Is it novel and unexpected relative to your context? So in my opinion, a digital transformation has to have something that is novel and unexpected relative to your context. If you can't answer that question in the affirmative, I suspect that you are not doing digital transformation, but you're just putting lipstick on the pig, so to speak.
So in relation to novel and unexpected, can we take it to performance or underperformance or discovering expectations? We need to move in that direction rather than fulfilling a set of framework which is already kind of there, and then the incremental benefits only are made available to the customer.
Yeah, so as long as you're solving customer reported problems and customer requirements, you are in the problem space of thinking. That cannot lead to disruptive. So for us to disrupt, we need to come up with a new unimagined expectation. And that would depend on your context. So I'll give you one example from a back-end process that was done. And don't ask me why this is so, right? There's a customer onboarding. There are two screens. 400 analysts are comparing customer entered data with the documents they have submitted. And this particular operation was using ICR and OCR, which is kind of old gen technology. 400 people were doing this. So the team that we mentored came up with a Google Vision API based solution, which was able to read the things 90% accurate comparison out of the box. So it reduced the 400 people to 40 people in short order. Of course, they were all repurposed and put on other jobs, right? The people didn't really lose the job, but the efficiency of the operation was dramatically changed. And this such as not a great, it's again novel and unexpected to that context. Google Vision API per se is not the novel and unexpected at the global level, but this particular process had a performance under supply. Any other questions or comments? Did I miss anything in the chat box?
No.
So Sukumar, in this case, I think this question from Karthik may be relevant in terms of the definition of digital transformation and what I was asking earlier from a startup perspective. So, combining all of this, like, and taking up your example, if a organization has moved from an existing legacy system to an ERP, which is impacting cross-functional work, and of course bringing efficiencies to that small setup which is there currently. That is situation one. Second situation is like the example what you just gave. If there are better ways of processing some information which is directly impacting or related to the business model of the organization, which obviously saves OpEx and, let's say, customer acquisition cost, would you call these digital transformations?
The first one, I have rarely seen a rollout of a new ERP software. Sorry if any of your fans of ERP, leading to digital transformation.
Sure.
I don't see, so maybe I am willing to be corrected of this opinion, but ERP softwares are large, take several years to roll out all of that, and rarely ever bring disruptive innovations into the mix. They might automate and make something more efficient. Hopefully they do at least that. But rarely ever they bring disruptive capability into the mix.
Good record keeping, integrity of data.
System of record, exactly. But we found out that what people need are systems of engagement. Yeah, you need systems of record. That doesn't mean that you throw away the systems of record. Again, all I have said today is, you do need to be in the problem solving space, because that's where your company's bread and butter is. You can't now say, hey, wait a minute, I won't do that. I will only do disruptive innovation. The thing is that we don't do any disruptive innovation at all. And that is the problem. So you're all finance people, right? Portfolio based approach. Spend 80 to 90% of your money on the left-hand side, problem, customer, all that. Spend 10 to 20% of your money on bringing true disruptive innovations into your organization. And remember that could be a little bit risky to do. It is not a fail-safe process. But if you did, you could surprise yourself. Like what we did in Cognizant. We clearly surprised ourselves. We didn't know any of what was going to happen when we started, because we just took up the challenge that Gordon gave us in full faith, and we decided to tackle it head on. We could have failed, in which case I might have lost my job. I don't know what might have happened. But you don't have to take that type of risk. You can choose certain processes which you think in your wide-ranging experience is amenable to a disruptive innovation, and bet on it. Make some small bets. Use a lean startup approach so that you don't do, hey, I spent $5 million and nothing came of it. You don't need that much money. Spend $100,000, $200,000 to make something happen. Right? That would be my recommendation, a portfolio-based approach, which is what all portfolio management in finance especially, you all are the inventors of the portfolio management approach. It's the same thing for innovation.
So from what
I would not do this cut over the company to a disruptive innovation. It's going to be 10, 15%, maybe max 20%. But if you don't do that 15 to 20%, I can tell you, your company is going to get disrupted. That I am quite sure. will, if not happen today, it will happen sometime in the future. Because look at this, Chat GPT has come, right? The latest wunderkind disruptive innovation. So I don't know what impact it's going to have. Okay, so we have only 2 more minutes. Any last comments, or Arun?
Yeah,
Charlotte,
I
Vinny?
just was about to, gather my thoughts. Basically, my understanding, what I'm trying to express is, it is not dependent. Zero additional dollars essentially meant that the entire transformation and innovation process is born out of the thinking or design thinking or whatever method of thinking which you had adopted. So you were able to fulfill. So I think that is the takeaway, because we cannot be dependent on the tools or the systems to provide us the transformational ideas. So it's all, end of the day, the team and the leaders who take a call on that. And your suggestion is for finance people, why don't you make a small bet? As a startup, 2% of the budget you should be willing to write off. If at all it happens, it does not impact the company in a large way. Is what I think that is the message I got. If I don't know, please correct me if I'm wrong. So it's not none of the top of the notch tools which may be available in the marketplace or not. So it's a thinking process primarily to though the ideas per se may be small, but like you mentioned, the direct create what is that approval, car approval, and also create worksheets. So ideas are simple, and then there's not much expenditure needed basically. So I mean, am I right, or you can please correct me?
Yeah, correct. You're right, Arun. I think they think of the third sum, be like the third sum, not like the first 2 sums. In that fill the room story.
Sure.
And friends, just to give an idea about Tiny Magiq, I would they engage themselves in providing support professionally along with his team. Mr. Sukumar, along with his team, will be able to provide training to the employees of your entities to uncover disruptive digital innovation opportunities with any system, any function or process. And then he's giving a money back guarantee with a time limit. I urge you to explore it, get into a chat or communication mode. And then I have firsthand seen his expression of ideas. They are all very simple and esteemed, including the nano presentation, which hopefully we will try to work out that nano presentation conference for our context and topic. So I would urge all of you to make use of Mr. Sukumar, I really thank for the time provided to engage with us today evening. We could, I think, gain some real insights as to how transformation can be undertaken, and what are the key areas a CFO can look at for making it a grand success.